visa fees, all this sort of stuff. But, you know, 8 to 14, $15 billion, it's a lot of money. How do you come up with it? If it comes to us footing the bill.
Look, a Bering whale, right? They swim all day with their mouths open, living on plankton, right? I mean, whether it's a $2 border crossing fee, and if you amend NAFTA, you can do that. You talk about taxing remittances. You can add surcharge for certain kinds of transactions, import duties, clearly. You can charge more for non-immigrant visa fees from Mexico. And, of course, he has a lot of levers to force Mexico to cough up some of the money as well. I mean, he could reprogram foreign aid, but he could also actually suspend the issuance of non-immigrant visas from Mexico on a condition of them paying. He also has various national emergency powers, Neil, that enable the president, because we're dealing with the national borders and national security, to rechannel resources that could be done from the U.S. budget and then, therefore, try to assess it somehow from Mexico. But he has this vast toolbox, very powerful presidential powers, because it deals with international borders. The best way to protect the most number of people is to help them temporarily where they are in hopes of eventual repatriation and the situation calms down in Syria. Third country resettlement in a country like the U.S. should be a last resort option. Neil, the voters who voted for Donald Trump, what they want is secure borders. They want security on the southern border. Now, if it takes a wall, 50%, fencing, other things deployed in the interim, what they care about is they want illegal immigration stopped, and nobody's going to quibble over the trifles of whether it's concrete, you know, or brick, or, you know, made of mosaic tiles. Now, that doesn't mean that it won't be attacked. We know the ACLU doesn't want to have any immigration controls, so they'll probably bring 50 different lawsuits to try to get one judge, as they did in the Ninth Circuit, to try to enjoin it. And, of course, ultimately an injunction can put the whole thing on ice again for a while, but we hope that it will withstand scrutiny. So every time you repeat this ridiculous comment that it's a Muslim ban, you are actually helping radical extremists in the Middle East to pursue their agenda. And whatever the ACLU's intention here, to try to get courts to use things like the First Amendment and the Fourth Amendment to second-guess immigration policy decisions delegated by Congress, by the Constitution to Congress, the American people, strikes at the very heart of sovereignty.
After 8 years, you've got massive illegal immigration. You've got these huge holes that the drug cartels, the human traffickers, and other criminal enterprises are exploiting, and people are dying as a result of that.
This so-called travel ban, not a Muslim ban, it's a temporary travel ban until they can review vetting procedures, and it was laid out by the Secretary of State, by the Department of Homeland Security and the Attorney General. It is constitutional. It is a lawful exercise under the statutes of the president's authority. And frankly, the new draft, there's nobody who has Article III legal standing in the United States to challenge it in federal court anyway, under 150 years of legal precedent of the law of standing. And so now it's moving into the realm of ideological disputes. I remember the day when the Trade Center buildings came down, and tears in my eyes, and I said, maybe people will stop listening to the ACLU's politicized agenda in trying to manipulate immigration policy in a way that jeopardizes national security. Policy is about protecting people on the basis of, among other things, religious persecution. So you have to make distinctions on the basis of religion. Obama was not admitting people from Syria as refugees for most of his administration, only in the last 2 terms. All of a sudden, the ACLU is claiming it's an establishment of religion to say that you want to give some preference to Christians in the Middle East because they've been discriminated against by a prior administration. That is the most ridiculous thing anybody's ever heard. What we're now facing is a big battle between Donald Trump, who's trying to crack down, and many Republicans, and the Democratic Party and Democrat-controlled states and counties setting themselves at defiance to the Trump administration to say, not only are we going to promote the concept of illegal immigration, we're going to do what we can to obstruct justice. There's no reason that these 2 guys should have been in the country. They came in here illegally. They were released. They never really had a hearing date for deportation because basically the Democrat Party position on this now is, unless you commit a dangerous felony, you shouldn't be deported. Well, you know what that means? You're going to have people here illegally who are committing felonies who have no criminal record.
They're counterproductive to reforming immigration the way that the public wants, and they defy federal law. Look, this rape was a crime. But this was a crime exacerbated, created by open borders, lax enforcement, catch and release policies and the proliferation of these sanctuary city policies, 300 of them, all over America, that aid and abet and welcome and reward illegal immigration. If you build it, they will come. Now you've got 300,000 illegal aliens in the state of Maryland, $2 billion a year in cost, but this goes way beyond monetary cost. This is a public safety risk, and this woman who was allegedly brutally raped in a bathroom stall knows that all too well. Look, one of the reasons we're seeing a buckling by local politicians to oppose sanctuary policies is because the ACLU is all over their back threatening a lawsuit. Tell them to go pound sand and tell them that your kid's safety in the classroom is more important than their politics.
There's nothing about these programs that does anything but fuel the demographic change that feeds the Democratic Party's political base. I mean, this is what they're simply trying to do. It's total corruption. But you know, Tucker, what Trump needs to do is not just fight to take away their money. He needs to flood the zone and get ICE ramped up in these so-called sanctuary jurisdictions and really start enforcing immigration laws as payback for these jurisdictions that don't think they're part of the United States anymore.
This administration has within its power to tell all these deferred action folks, you need to go out and buy some luggage because you're heading home real soon. We have hundreds of millions of dollars of pro bono legal assistance from America's major law firms to try to stop enforcement of immigration laws. And now we're all supposed to pay because the Democratic Party opposes immigration law enforcement. I think everybody should resent this and realize that this is a true division in this country, separating those who respect the rule of law from those who want to obstruct it. Basically, this is a continuation of giving one group of people, lawbreakers who jump the line, more benefits and more opportunity than all the law-abiding citizens of this country combined.
People who are unlawfully present in the United States who have committed a crime will be encountered by state and local law enforcement officers before they're encountered by immigration and customs enforcement agents.
But back then, Bill Clinton understood the dynamics of the issue. But remember, when the Republicans took Congress in 1994, first time practically in my lifetime, one of their first priorities on the legislative hit parade, ban legal immigrants from welfare for 5 years. And they passed that law. Bill Clinton signed it for means-tested, cash-based federal assistance. Problem is, we got immigrants pouring into the country who have such poor education skill levels in a high value-added information society that welfare use is skyrocketing, and there's all kinds of loopholes. So now if your bathtub's overflowing, you don't pick up a spoon, you turn off the spigot. So what Trump promised in the campaign was cutting levels of immigration down to a more refined, highly skilled flow that wouldn't need welfare at the same levels. But in the end, the solution is reduce immigration, improve the skills composition by mandating postgraduate degree tech education, much lower levels. That's what Donald Trump promised, and he needs to fulfill his campaign promises before starting down a whole new track of legislative initiative. In the end, we can expect a final decision to be a restatement of the broad authority the president has under the immigration law to exclude aliens based on national security, and will limit the right of plaintiffs like this to bring these kinds of cases, which never should have been allowed in the first place. But right now, what we have is an immigration system that doesn't work for the American people. Obviously, if you're going to admit a haystack, you're going to get a few needles who are entrepreneurs and people who might expand our productive potential. But in the end, we need to modernize our immigration system by restoring traditional levels of immigration, bringing it back down to the proper levels that we can absorb and assimilate so that wages go up, American workers can live the American dream again, innovation is spurred because of the labor tightening effects of less immigration. All these great things would happen if we would reduce immigration, but it's hard to get past the special interest pressure.
I couldn't disagree more with your interpretation of what sanctuary cities are. They are really about protecting dangerous criminal aliens. These are not people that are working under the table. These are people that are breaking our laws and then getting protection from these dangerous policies. This is what happened to Kate Steinle, who never should have been slain on that pier if not for San Francisco's policies. Chicago is one of the most dangerous cities in the country, and the sanctuary policies are directly related to that. The rhetoric of this administration has stopped the flow, or at least reduced it dramatically. But the second President Trump is not in office, the floodgates are going to open up again.
We have been having this discussion for 20 years. President Bill Clinton appointed a commission to look at this issue 20 years ago, chaired by civil rights icon Barbara Jordan. They came up with 3 major recommendations from a bipartisan commission: cut legal immigration, eliminate extended family chain migration, and move to a skills-based immigrant selection process like Canada and Australia have. The current model is not working. Donald Trump took a wooden stake and drove it into the heart of that talking point in a matter of months, and has proven that without a single concrete block on the wall and without a single new Border Patrol hire, that America can regain control of its borders. We can start clearing out our immigration case backlog. We can find and deport criminal aliens, and we can restore the public's confidence in our immigration policies that's been lost for decades now.
Right. At some point, you just have to cut off that chain, and the rest of the family has to sort of earn their own way there through the merit-based system. You know, unless you're going to have a policy where unlimited migration can come into the United States, someone is going to be excluded. Right now, we have backlogs because of the current system, and those people are having to wait to come in. So unless you're just going to open the door to absolutely everybody, which is just not a sustainable policy, and I don't think anyone here is calling for that, then you have to put some reasonable limitations to that.
All kinds of conversations taking place, and it certainly would have to be something more than simply the wall. The wall is a very, very small part of what is needed to deal with the problem of illegal immigration. What's more important, in our view, is removing the incentives for people to come across the border illegally in the first place.
FAIR is bringing the wisdom of 40 years of hindsight, looking at recommendations from commission after commission, reasons why we're in this mess in the first place. True reform is to examine how we got where we are and make changes to prevent it from happening in the future.